Well, hello, traders and investors. I'm L.A. Little, and this is your daily NeoTA wrap. We take a look at these markets. We're doing it from a neoclassical perspective, and that means every day we look at these markets and ask ourselves what happened either last week or yesterday, and what does it tell us about the coming days. I do the show 4 times a week, every Monday through Thursday. It's broadcast at or before 10 o'clock Eastern Time, archived on YouTube, and it's under the channel L.A. Little. If you haven't subscribed, you want to, just reach up in the right-hand corner and do so. Anytime I push content, you'll get a notification. Keep you up to date with what's happening. Free and easy, folks. That's the way we do it. As far as what happened today, it actually ended up exactly like I told members yesterday. You know, I can't really share everything on this show that I do with the members. It really wouldn't be fair to them since they do pay for the service. Nominal fee, but do pay nevertheless. But it was an up day, right? Nice big up spike. And there was a reason for that call that I made to them yesterday on the weekend broadcast for members only. And I told them, you know, I thought the bounce was going to probably start from here. And, you know, maybe a little downside this morning, but outside of that, we'd probably move higher. And that is what we got. Asia was pretty much closed. So all these numbers you see there is from last week. 0.84 on the GDAX, the German market, the French market, even the Swiss market, they all moved up. I also talked about that yesterday. We actually had some movement down in gold and in silver. That was kind of interesting given that the dollar continued down, because I did say to the members yesterday that the dollar was likely to continue down. I'll show you why here in a few minutes. So all in all, kind of what you would expect. You get the bounce. The bounce is trying to take place here. And now it's a question of how far does it go. And so let's take a look at the reasons for the calls that were made on the members weekend show. And you know, let's start here with the S&P 500. There was really 3 things that went into this. This was one of them. Inside the S&P, there were actually 3 things inside it that all pointed to the probability that we're going to get some sort of a bounce back up. If you take and do the ABCD structure, right, you had an ABCD structure that had just completed. That was number 1. Second, you had this big bar. You went into the top of it, right? As you came into the top of it, you had less volume. Even though volume expanded, it was less volume compared to what it was coming into. That probably was going to lead to a bounce. Finally, one other thing that was taking place is this was a swing point high. And that swing point high, it had done almost a full retest, and it's a bullish retest. In other words, you had broken out over the swing point high, and when you broke out here, right, that led to a little extension. Now you get your retrace back into it. It should, on the first attempt, try to push back higher. The odds are in the favor of that. That's neoclassical, folks. You don't see anybody else talk about that. It's a great measurement tool because you can look at volume, you can look at how it attacks, what it attacks, you can look at the other structures that are taking place, and you can make a decent call. And so that was the S&P 500. That was kind of what led us to think that this would happen. On the Russell, there was another good reason on the Russell to think that, and that is that as the Russell was coming back, it had not gotten to the swing point high, and that's why I said it could potentially go a little bit lower. But that was more than 6 bars. And more than 6 bars in neoclassical on any kind of a breakout, you know, if you go more than 6 bars before you test, the odds are extremely high that that's going to regenerate higher. And so as it gets close here, it didn't even get to it yet. So that extension is continuing, right? And now it's trying to pop back up. When it finally does get back here, it's probably going to be bought. It's like a 90%er. And so those kinds of things, you know, you want to pay attention to, and that's neoclassical pure form. How do I know that? Well, because I did a lot of research, wrote a couple books about these concepts, about this model, created this model. Folks, it works. And I know there's skepticism, especially in financials, and I can understand that, you know, because there's so many fly-by-night folks out there. But if you talk to anybody that's followed me for any period of time, you will hear the same thing over and over, and that is that one of the few people that's quite honest about what he does and doesn't know, and makes the calls pretty darn good most of the time. So anyway, that was what led me to think that we were going to see a push back up. There was one more thing, and that had to do with the NDX. Now, the NDX was the main reason for this pullback, right? The NDX is coming off pretty hard. But if you look inside the NDX, and I'm going to pull over a weekly and a monthly chart and show you what I was looking at there and what I showed members this weekend, and that is, and I'll just pop through them here one by one, and that is as we saw that pullback for the most part was in the big cap technology stocks. And so if I put in Apple here and we bring it up, Apple was coming back into an area that it should regenerate from, right? It should do a failed test and regenerate. So the regeneration really not that high a probability anymore, because this is the second time into it. And actually you could call it the third time, because it did bounce back out over there once. So third time back, but the key thing here on Apple really wasn't that. It was this test, right? This test down on this low, that 92 number, I believe it is, 92 even, into the swing point high. The volume there, as you came back to test, probably wasn't going to be enough to break it down. And if you pull this back and look at it on a weekly, you'll see the same thing here with that low. It's a high volume low as it was trying to get down. Oops, I got the NDX up here because I didn't change them all. Let me bring Apple up. It was a high volume low here on Apple. As it came back into it, didn't have the volume, right? Big spike down, all week long sold off, big percentage move down. Couldn't bring the volume. That says it's probably going to bounce. You get under today, back over. This is going to try to bounce now. You know, you still could test this while you're down here, and if you're actually wanting to buy Apple, you would like to see that test take place. That's another Neo concept, but it didn't take place, and so that makes it a little less appetizing, if you will. But it did do an under-over after an extended move. That's a 2-bar reversal. That probably should work back the other way. Now that was Apple, but you also had the same sort of issues elsewhere. Google. And this is the top 3 weightings in this index. Google's coming into a swing point high, another big volume bar just behind it. As it comes back down there, it also doesn't have the volume. So you're coming into a zone where you should find support. And if you're going to get the move up, right, this is where you would expect it, into this area. It's what's happening, right? You're getting the move back the other way. And finally, if we look at Microsoft, which is the other large one. Now, Microsoft wasn't quite as weak as the other two. Microsoft had a little bit farther it could have gone into the swing point high and into this low right there. So those two areas, but it didn't quite get there. It was almost there, just barely getting into the swing point high again. So Microsoft also coming into some bars with some volume, right, compared to what it was coming in with. The volume wasn't the same. Again, should bounce. These are all counter trend bounces, but if the NDX is going to work higher, it's probably going to pull the rest of the market. And if you go back to those numbers that I showed you, NDX was the leader today on the upside. Not by much, but on the upside, it was the leader. And during the day, intraday, it was actually up a little bit more. I gave up some of it at the end. So that was the reasoning. That's the neoclassical concepts behind it. And that's one of the things that's so powerful about what it is that we do here at TA today, and that is follow Neo ideas. I want to show you something else just to kind of concretely show you kind of the value. You know, one of the things you can do, and I'll pull over this. This is the watch list that I'm using when I'm sitting here talking to you. You know, and what I'm doing basically, I'm coming down here, you know, pulling up a watch list. And we have a thing called shared watch list. And so I can share a watch list with you. And in this particular case, I have some shared watch list picks. And I'm not going to show them all to you, but I have some picks that I had given. The very first one there was Apple. Matter of fact, let me just pull it back over here. Since I've already told you about Apple, I might as well show it to you. Right? Telling you about Apple. It's a bounce trade. Successful test of a 92 low on the weekly chart. That's where you want to buy it. That was the sort of thing. These are the things I do for the members. I give them setups along with actual picks in their portfolio, you know, that I run for them. But I outlined 2 picks today, both of which were reporting earnings after the bell. Let me pop those up. One of them is FN. This is Fabrinet. They had earnings after the bell today. Folks, this is a great setup. I mean, if you look at this on each of the time frames, big spikes up, volume on the spikes, comes back up, testing this ledge at 33. If you get over this ledge, you're going to break these swing point highs. If you bring it over to a weekly, you're going to break out of this little consolidation group. And if you go to the monthly, you're up here at the highs as well, and you got volume pushing on the way up. That says to me that this thing could bounce after the bell reports earnings up pretty big. Another one that showed up on the breakouts for tonight, FN was one. The other one was Raj. I'll pull that one up as well. This one was a multi swing point, potential swing point breakout. This the one before was up about 12% after hours. This one I think was up about 5 or 6%. It's going to try to break out tomorrow. If you want to trade, take a look at this one in the morning. Again, a nice neoclassical setup. If it gets over the swing point high, it's going to be a breakout on 2 time frames. Anytime you get a break on multiple time frames, you're typically going to get a run, and it's going to last 2 to 3 bars on the longest time frame. The odds favor that heavily. That's the sort of breakouts that I buy when I buy breakouts. Otherwise, I don't mess with them because the odds are extremely high that a breakout is going to come back within 6 bars if it's not multi-time frame breakouts. Again, neoclassical concepts, things that I've written about, I've researched and written about, and now with our mentoring program here at TA Today, I actually teach members these one-on-one, right? I mean, you can't get this anywhere else. And, you know, what can I say? It's a great deal, something you ought to be looking at. As far as what's going to happen tomorrow, I'm going to go back here to the general markets. We're probably going to get some carry through. I don't see anything here that's going to stop it. I'm going to go back to the S&P 500. If we look at the S&P 500, got a swing point high here. You're coming back into a little ledge. We could actually draw it in here. So let me just grab the chart. And that little ledge is right about there. You just got back into it. We'll see if it wants to pop back up. Where's the test? The test is on this bar. That's this high. That's this bar. That's the real test on the way back up. If you're going to get a larger pullback, you're going to get a failed bounce. I told members that yesterday. There's a couple places to watch. It doesn't happen to be on this chart, but if you're looking on the right chart, you can see where it's coming into, and you can make a decision. And that decision is probably going to be made this week. As for tomorrow, though, probably going to try to push higher. Have a great one. Join me here at TA Today. And as always, I thank you. Tell a friend, tell two. I'm LA. This is and was your daily NeoTA wrap. Have yourself a great night, and I'll see you tomorrow. Good night.